Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with the practice questions for the day, a quick gentle reminder. Byjus Exam Prep IAS, as part of its Target Prelims 2023, will be conducting its third polity session today from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. So please do tune in live on our YouTube channel so that you understand all the important topics with respect to polity that have been in news for the past 365 days that will be handled by Samman Mehraj sir. Let's get started and look into the first practice question. With respect to painted storks, which of the following statements are correct? They are snowy white color birds and migrate during winter to India. Its IUCN status is near threatened. Painted storks feed in groups in shallow wetlands, crop fields and irrigation canals. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to painted stocks, which is why we have taken this practice question. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, it reads, they are snowy white color birds and migrate during winter to India. This statement is wrong. Why? Because they are not migratory and only make short distance movements within their range. So what is their range? They can generally be found in the wetlands of the plains of tropical Asia, south of the Himalayas in the Indian subcontinent, and may also extend up until Southeast Asia as well. So remember, they are not migratory birds and they usually travel only within a particular range that they are already present in, and they are not snowy white color bird. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section which are these snowy white color birds that migrate during winter to India. They travel from Russia to India. Which are these is what you have to put on the comment section. The second statement which reads, its IUCN status is near threatened. Yes, this statement is right. The third statement is also right, that paint stocks feed in groups in shallow wetlands, crop fields and irrigation canals. So remember, they are found south of the Himalayan ranges and they extend up until Southeast Asia, and do note they are absent from very dry or desert regions, dense forest as well as the higher hilly regions. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following functional items are placed within the purview of municipalities under the 12th schedule? Water supply for domestic, industrial and commercial purposes, public health, sanitation, conservancy and solid waste management, slum improvement and upgradation, minor irrigation, water management and watershed development, animal husbandry, dairying and poultry. Which of these items are under the purview of municipalities under the 12th schedule? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to waste management. Waste management happens to be one of the functional items that is mentioned under the 12th schedule with respect to the municipalities. So which are the functional items that are mentioned in the 12th schedule? What we have is urban planning including town planning, regulation of land use and construction of buildings, planning for economic and social development, roads and bridges, water supply for domestic, industrial and commercial purposes. This happens to be one. Public health, sanitation, conservancy and solid waste management. This happens to be second. Fire services, urban forestry, protection of environment and promotion of ecological aspects, safeguarding the interests of weaker sections, slum improvement and upgradation, urban poverty alleviation, provision of urban amenities and facilities such as parks, gardens and playgrounds, promotion of cultural, education and aesthetic aspects, burial grounds, cremation grounds, electric crematoriums, cattle pounds, prevention of cruelty to animals. Vital statistics include registration of birth and death, public amenities including street lighting, parking lots, bus stops and public convenience, and regulation of slaughterhouses and tanneries. These 18 items are part of the functional list which are part of 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution. But then we also have the functional items under the panchayat as well. It is under the panchayat that we have the animal husbandry, dairying and poultry, and we also have minor irrigation, water management and watershed development. So the options that are given here, one is to do with 4 and 5 are wrong because this is the activity of the panchayat, but the first 3 are right, which is why the answer to this would be 1, 2 and 3. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements is correct with respect to Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act? Addicts charged with consumption of drugs or with offences involving small quantities will be immune from prosecution if they volunteer for de-addiction. State governments have the power to add or omit from the list of psychotropic substances. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to NDPS Act, which is why we have taken this practice question. When we look into the first statement, it reads, addicts charged with consumption of drugs or with offences involving small quantities will be immune from prosecution if they volunteer for de-addiction. This happens to be a right statement. What exactly happens? We have the NDPS Act. This happens to be one of the important primary legislations when it comes to dealing with the drugs, trafficking related issues, narco-terrorism, addiction, de-addiction, so on and so forth. So this happens to be a major law which helps in prevention of drug abuse in our country. So when we look at the Constitution of India, we have one of the major articles in the Indian Constitution under the directive principles of state policy, which directs the state to ensure the prohibition of consumption of all these drugs except for the medicinal purposes. Which is this article? Please put it on the comment section. So the primary objective is to prevent narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, so on and so forth, and ultimately the Government of India introduced Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985. Now if we look into who can add substances into this particular list, whether it is a drug or not, is the central government. It is not the state governments, but this power is given to the central government as per section 3. So section 3 goes on to say power to add to or to omit from the list of psychotropic substances is with the central government. So the state government may suggest, but it is ultimately the central government which has the power to add a substance into the list, delete a substance from this particular list as well. When we look into the NDPS Act, we have three kinds of quantities. Two are actually mentioned, one is not mentioned. What is it? One, what we have is the small quantity. The other is what is called as the commercial quantity. So between the small quantity and the commercial quantity, what we have is the intermediate quantity. So according to it, if there is a person who at times is consuming it, this person may not be prosecuted. I'm not saying that he will be prosecuted, he shall be prosecuted. So in certain circumstances, he may be prosecuted. In certain other circumstances, he may also not be prosecuted, depending on the facts of the case and the circumstances of the case. But generally, what we have is that addicts charged with consumption of drugs or with offences involving small quantities will be immune from prosecution if they volunteer for de-addiction. This immunity may be withdrawn if the addict does not go complete treatment as part of section 64A. So the first statement is right, the second statement is wrong. Since the question is asking for the correct statement, the answer to this would be one only. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following measures can be taken to control inflation? Contradictory monetary policy, direct taxes should be increased, export restrictions. Which of the measures can be taken up to control the inflation? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to what are governments doing to ease inflation pain. So these are some of the measures that the government would be able to take up in order to reduce the inflation that is existing in their economy. Let's look into the first statement. It reads contradictory monetary policy. What is it? This is one of the methods of controlling the inflation. What exactly happens? You have the monetary policy that are released by the central banks in every other country. For example, we have the Reserve Bank of India, which will be able to control the inflation in the market. So what do? Within the economy, what they'll be able to do is increase the interest rate. So when interest rates are increased, there will be slow economic growth by making credit far more expensive, and at the same time people will stop taking the credit as well. This reduces consumer and business spending. So the first statement, that is contradictory monetary policy, basically means the central bank, for us in India it is the Reserve Bank of India, which will increase the interest rate, and once they do it, credit will become become far more expensive. So the first statement is right. The second statement reads, direct taxes should be increased. This is another method of controlling the inflation. If they have too much of money at their disposal, they would be able to buy a particular product which are already in limited supply. But if the direct taxes are increased, they have very less amount at their disposal, so we can keep a check on the inflation. So second statement is also right. When we look into the third statement, export restrictions. How? Let's say, for example, hypothetical situation, we have about 1000 tons of wheat. If this 1000 tons of wheat, about 250 tons of wheat is exported to another country, what we have is the crunch of resources in India for its own domestic consumers. So what would happen? If we are imposing export restrictions, we would not be exporting to another country, so we have enough reserves in our country, thereby we are controlling the inflation. So we have contradictory monetary policy, direct taxes should be increased, export restrictions, all these would be able to control the inflation in the economy. Now let's look into the next practice question. This question is taken from yesterday's CNA. We did say in our yesterday's CNA that Brazil current happened to be a cold current. We are extremely sorry. Do make this change, that Brazil current is not a cold current. Instead, it is a warm current, and the options have also been changed. That is, 3 has also been inserted. So the answer to this would be 1, 2, 3 and 4 only. Please make this change from our yesterday's daily quiz. Now let's look into the previous year question. Consider the following: carbon dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur. Which of the above are the emission or the emissions from coal combustion at thermal power plants? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2011. So when it comes to the coal-fired thermal power plants, what we have is all these gases that are released. One is the carbon dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur are all released from the thermal power plants. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is taken from the PIB, which is Mahila Samman Savings Certificate. What is this certificate? This happens to be a scheme that was introduced by the Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji in the Union Budget of 2023 and 24. What is the aim? The aim is to promote financial inclusion and empower women and girls. What exactly happens when we speak about financial inclusion? What is this term? This is about making sure that every strata of the society become part of the financial empowerment process. We have a certain section of people, let's say for example the unorganized sector, people who do not have effective salary, so on and so forth. They do not have a fixed source of income. These people and the women are also the ones traditionally have been part of the system of taking care of their homes. So they do not have much of their money at their disposal, and they do not have the savings as well. So there are certain strata of the society who are not financially empowered. So in order to make them financially empowered, what we have is a program undertaken by the government of India, which is Mahila Samman Savings Certificate. So making women part of the financial empowerment so that they can save for a period of about 2 years, so that the government gives them a particular interest rate, and they also have this partial withdrawal process when they are saving as well. So remember, this is a financial inclusive program only for the women as well as children, that is female children. The 2-year tenure will offer an interest rate of 7.5% compounded quarterly with flexible investment and partial withdrawal options with a maximum ceiling of 2 lakhs. So they would be able to deposit as much as 2 lakh, which is the maximum. The scheme will have a partial withdrawal facility as well. Mahila Samman Savings Certificate can be availed in any of the 1.59 lakh post offices across the country from April 1 by opening an account with the post office. You can also open a Mahila Samman Savings Certificate account by downloading the form from the India Post website, filling it out, submitting it to the nearest post office branch. So remember, this happens to be one of the saving certificates that is under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. What are the benefits? One, when you look at the normal process, let's say for example you have the money, you go on deposit in the bank, and the bank will usually pay you certain interest when it comes to the fixed deposits. So fixed deposits in the bank will offer a certain percentage which is far lesser than the Mahila Samman Saving Certificate. So if a person is asked a question, do I have to put it in the fixed deposit or do I have to put it in the Mahila Samman saving certificate? You should insist that she has to put it in the Mahila Samman certificate because the interest offered is far more than what the banks are offering in the fixed deposits. And added to it, when it comes to this particular scheme, they would also be able to withdraw partially as well. This is another advantage. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.